Good evening and a very warm welcome from my side. EQ for Kids, welcome you at this webinar. Many years ago, Antoinette approached me after one of my talks. And she said to me, she looked me in the eyes and she said to me, we need to give parents a program that can help them with the regulation of the parents, of the kids' emotional intelligence, or rather emotions. And she immediately started developing a curriculum, 164 lessons. And for many years together, she was part of the company, my co-director. And then in January, she resigned because she wants to do something else, more in the corporate world. And tonight is very special for me to. It gives me great joy, Antoinette Stein, to welcome you on this webinar, so that you can teach the parents something about emotional intelligence. Because when I look around me, I often see that some adults, don't have emotional intelligence.
That's true.
What about the kids? So, Antonetta, welcome. Very much welcome.
Thank you.
I want to ask you a question that when you came to me, you listened to me. I did a presentation on temperaments, how we are wired differently. And then when you sat there, what happened in your mind before you approached me?
Yes, Lynette, I think what appealed to me in terms of what you did was the way you approached life in such a relaxed manner. And I was sitting there and I remember the first thought that came to mind is, but you know what? This is actually the environment and world that we as parents need to create for our kids. At that stage, I don't know if you remember, I was pregnant with my second son.
I remember.
And yes, so it was quite a challenging time for me. And I was faced with the reality of the fact that parenting matters. And I think your approach and your way of dealing with life in general, if we look at emotions and parenting, one of the most overbearing and overarching concepts is the fact that our reactions as adults, the way we look at life, the way we interpret life, ultimately becomes this narrative that our kids carry with them throughout the rest of their lives. So it's such an important phase of intervention, and your approach of intervening was very appealing. So I'm so excited and proud of the way it has evolved. It's been quite a few years now. It's 10 years this year.
It's 10 years ago. 10 years ago, she came up to me and she said to me, what you are doing for adults, we need to do for kids. So Tuesday, 4:00, House of Coffees, Woodlands. I meet you there. And I looked at this lady and I thought, who do you think you are? Just to tell me where I need to be and what time I need to be there, what day. And then I realized, luckily for my intellectual intelligence, or rather emotional intelligence, I realized that this person is very red. She's a raving red person. And then I just submit. And I met her, and everything started there at House of Coffees in Woodlands. So, Antoinette, you developed this EQ program. Tell us more about the program.
Yes, so the basis of the program is for kids from a very young age, 3 to 7 years old. That's our primary kids. That's also the parents that are rushing around in the household now, everywhere, trying to help their kids fall asleep and listening to us and getting some advice while they are multitasking. Remember, multitasking reduces productivity. So get someone to step in and take this moment to listen. But if we look at the EQ for Kids program, it's a program in totality for 0 to 18-year-olds. And it's got some hubs or flow outs out of it, which caters for parents and even teachers. Lynette is doing tremendous work in that regard at schools and communities across the country. So the essence of the program is for the youngsters, the preschool kids, to basically determine and develop the concept of self-awareness. I always train the EQ for Kids franchisees, and I hammer on this when I do parenting talk. It's important to remember that the most basic and essential emotional intelligence skill is self-awareness. We as parents and kids cannot develop emotional intelligence if we do not develop an awareness first. This encapsulates awareness with regards to our triggers, our emotional challenges, where we need to develop. And I remember, and if I had to summarize the parents coming to us with their challenges, it often boils down to self-regulation. And when it comes to the EQ for Kids program, it's important to remember that kids develop throughout many years. Our brains are only fully developed by the age of 25. But in the first 7 years of our lives, we are like a sponge, a famous analogy that you all know of. We only take in what we are surrounded with. That's why when it comes to more complex clinical matters like trauma, it is the reaction of parents or the surrounding individuals in the life of a kid that determines whether high stress situations actually become trauma. So the example we set as parents is extremely important. Yes, we hammer on our kids being able to do maths or spell their names by the age of 5. But at the end of the day, it all boils back to our emotional intelligence abilities. And I think what you do, Lynette, in terms of your temperament approach and the way you approach parenting is quite a significant resemblance of that. You portray what you teach. And when it comes to parenting, that's the most important lesson you can teach.
But Antoinette, don't you think for parents to be emotionally intelligent, to be an example for their kids, don't you think that the foundation is for the parent to know themselves? And therefore, it is important, it is imperative that you need to know what your temperament is, because you get the parent that is they love life, they love parties, they love inviting people over. It's the yappy parent. And then you get the raving parent. They want what they want and they want it now. And they want it their way. And then you also get the groovy parent, and that is the one that don't like the conflict. So they always try to avoid conflict. And the other parent is this perfect parent who plans, and everything needs to be done the right way. And if you don't know who you are and you don't know who your kids are, it is very challenging to develop them emotionally. Because how can a child be developed emotionally strong if the parent is not emotional intellectual? So I just want to say this. You get your red and it's a raving red, and you get the perfect blue. Those parents are parents that are task-orientated parents. And then you get your yellow, yappy yellow, and your groovy green parents. They are relationship-orientated. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depends on how you want to see it, the yellow, the yappy yellow marries the perfect blue. So the one is the relationship parent, and the other one is the task-orientated. And the red, the raving red, marries the green, who doesn't like conflict. Now, they do not see when they look through their window. They cannot see the same. And if you don't know how to discipline children, how to teach them to be emotional intelligent, if you don't know you cannot teach them that. So I said to Antoinette, and I realized it the other day when we sat in training with a new product of ours. We have a brand new product, Leer and Clear, or Learn in Color. That is where we take study methods and we add the temperament to it to help you as a parent to help your child study. Because if you a yappy yellow parent or a groovy green parent, you will be the loved parents. You will be loved by the children because it will always be the red and the blue parent that will have to do the discipline. Am I correct?
Yes.
So talk about
You are.
talk about us about the emotions and the data and drama, because knowing your emotions, it's not drama, it's just data, and people need to know how to deal with it.
Yes, at EQ for Kids, we always say that there's no such thing as a bad emotion. Emotions gives us data to help inform our choices. And that brings me to add on to what I was saying earlier on the foundation of our emotional intelligence program is self-awareness. And even if it takes your child until 12, 13 to just develop that ability, you are investing in their emotional intelligence, because from that we can move to more complex matters like self-regulation. And an interesting example, a few weeks ago we were at the zoo and we got to the cage where the monkeys were and the kids were all excited. And I will never forget these two young parents standing there with a young little boy about 5, 6 years old. And this child was going absolutely crazy, climbing onto the cages, screaming. He was so excited to see the monkeys. And I stepped back and I actually frowned upon the fact that the parents were standing there finding this very entertaining. This boy who was screaming, shouting, disrupting the whole adventure for everyone. His parents thought it was cute and it was nice that he was doing this and reacting this way. But when it comes to emotions, it's important that we realize self-regulation is a complex ability. And we often mistake self-regulation for something that applies only to difficult emotions like hardship, anger, frustration, sadness. But in essence, we need to teach our kids to apply self-regulation in these emotions of excitement as well. To sum it up, I always use the example of Dr. Jordan Peterson, the clinical psychologist. He boldly states that we should never allow our kids to do things that makes us dislike them. And that is quite a prominent tendency that we observed in EQ for Kids and working with kids, is that they are, the parenting style, the modern parenting style leans more towards allowing kids to just run free with their emotions. And it's difficult. We need to teach our kids. By the age of 2, a child already has the ability to use their eyes and body demeanor to lie. By the age of 7, 50% of kids can lie completely with their words, their emotional tonality. And if they get older, by the age of 9, 100% of kids can lie with convincing body language, eyes, demeanors, and everything. So we often forget the emotional intelligence concept and the role it plays in parenting. But as you rightly said, the greatest gift you can give your child is to know who you are and to be the best version of yourself. Because what kids see matter more than what we actually say to them.
I know. You know what? Many years ago, I just want to share this story with you. Many years ago, my dad used to do panel beating work after work for extra money. So then this one woman phoned, and my brother picked up the phone. We were still in primary school. So when he picked up the phone, he said, "Hello, Flippy." And my dad went like this.
Showing he's not there.
Yeah. So my mom said, James, take that phone. And my dad just ignored her and he walked away. So there my brother was sitting with the phone and he didn't know what was going on. He said, Oom Flippy, my dad is not here. Now, Oom Flippy could have heard that there were a lot of ructions on the other side. And when he put the phone down, my mum called my dad and she said to him, she said, James, do you know what you just did? You just told the kids that it is okay to lie. And that is my thing, Antoinette. This is my thing. We at EQ for Kids really try our best with the curriculum that you have written. We really do. But every single day, when I have time and I think about it, uh, aren't we wasting our time? Isn't it? It's not that we waste our time, but don't you think we also need to work with the parents simultaneously?
Yes, that's why we are taking strong approaches currently, and later on you will probably share the parenting book that's available. I always say that the problem never lies with the kids. It always comes back to the parents. It's your responsibility. And the way we navigate emotions sets the greatest example. I want to use another example. Just yesterday, my youngest son is quite emotional and emotionally expressive, and he had an orators competition. And he's very good at that. Normally he wins, but yesterday he had a bit of a challenging day and he didn't perform at his best. I was walking into the house when we got home. I was singing, I was happy, jumping around, but he was quite sad and despondent, and he was really but disappointed with his results. And he looked at me, and they know this. My eldest son is older. He's got this figured out by now. But the younger one is only 12 years old. He's still learning this. But one thing they can absolutely say for a fact, and he actually asked me last night, why, Mom, why are you not upset? I feel so bad. This is so terrible. It feels devastating. I smiled at him and I told him, but I'm responsible for my emotions. You can't tell me how to feel just because you feel a certain way. You want me or expect me to feel the same way. And that's often a big mistake that parents make. We get mad at our kids and we tell them, you make me angry. You make me sad. And the burden of emotions, or not the burden, actually the blessing, because I believe that challenges, adversity provides opportunities for the greatest growth in our lives. But to teach our kids from a young age that they are separate emotional entities, if you want, they are responsible for their emotions. And it comes back to what you said, the example we set. Just because it's challenging for you, it doesn't determine the way I feel. And it's quite impressive, the EQ for Kids program. We have kids who hasn't been in the program, who are 5, 6, 7 years old, and they've been in the program for quite a while. And it's quite interesting to me how these kids pick up on this. But as parents, we need to remember, we will feel frustrated in the first years of life. We often only start seeing return on our parenting investment here from the age of 16, 17, and ultimately by the age of 25. But we often expect these youngsters to perform at the emotional intelligence level that we ourselves cannot even adhere to.
But Antoinette, one thing I want to say to you as a parent, maybe you're a teacher that attends this webinar, I just want to say this. Don't feel guilty as we are talking about parents that are not emotionally intelligent. It's just that I want to say this to you because we at EQ for Kids, we send stuff home to help you. So in the process, where we teach the child to become emotional intelligent, you can also benefit by the program that you've written.
Yes.
But that is only if you as a parent go through that take-home product, work through it, because every week for 30 minutes, they have this lesson. And you need to try throughout that week to elaborate on it, to remind them of it. Whenever you go to the shops, and there's a lesson on emotions, ask the kids. Let's see what are the emotions on the face and the facial expressions of that that woman that is paying now, that one who is in this car sitting next to you. We need to develop it as we go along. Do you agree with me?
Yes, and I think that refers more to the simplicity of implementing the EQ for Kids program in a household. The tools and activities are not this big work charts that you have to sit with for hours after school. No, it's part of a process that you incorporate in your daily routine. A very important process. And I also want to bring a message of hope today. I've been quite challenged lately by parenting speakers out there and people being so negative towards our parenting generation. And I want to actually commend our parenting generation. I think that the stage we are in with individuals who are parent right now is we are parents of the most emotionally aware generation that there ever was. And that is because we as parents learned how to navigate emotions better. We make it a subject that is part of everyday discussion in our households. It's not something you refrain from talking about. And that is very important. Just experiencing overwhelming emotions in those aftermath of experiencing that emotions. Did you know that your IQ, you speaking about IQ earlier, can be decreased by up to 30 points in those moments where we experience challenging emotions? And helping our kids to be more comfortable with these emotions is something that I think at EQ for Kids we do quite well. And the message we bring across is quite awesome. In that
but it starts with the parent. And people, I know that many, many years ago, when my parents were still alive, I don't think there were programs like this.
No,
nobody taught them. Nobody. So it is not like I'm pointing a finger at you, parent, but I'm calling on you. I'm calling on you to make an effort to start knowing your temperament, your child's temperament, to start reading about emotional intelligence, to start looking at what we sent the kid home with and start getting involved, because we really, really, really want to help you. But it is challenging when we teach the child and you are not on that level. So it's a cry out for you to get involved in this EQ for Kids program.
Yes, on that note of parents being involved, it's quite interesting, and we had a discussion about this earlier on. The amount of individuals who still don't understand what emotional intelligence in essence means. What is the definition of emotional intelligence?
Just one moment. If you have to define emotional intelligence, how will you define it? Just for a moment. Do you know? We are talking about emotional intelligence, but do you really know what it is?
Yes, so Goldman, who coined the term in the 80s, had quite an elaborative definition and included the sub-elements of emotional intelligence like self-regulation, self-awareness, empathy. He ultimately added motivation and resilience onto this model. But after all the years that I worked with emotional intelligence, I came up with a one-sentence definition. And in my opinion, this is the most accurate way of describing the wonder of emotional intelligence. So in essence, emotional intelligence is the ability to create values that are stronger than your emotions.
Oh, I like that. I like that. But look at that. Look at Bekezla Kubi. Look at her definition. I like that. Sorry, we've got the TV screen here. So if we look up, we are looking at that TV screen. And I like the way she also said it. You can say yours again, but just quote her definition.
The ability to understand your emotions and those of others.
But you need to control your emotions, and you need to deal with the emotions of the others, because you can't control other people. You can only control you. And then you need to deal with the other people's emotions. But it's very difficult to deal with it if you don't know how to deal with it.
Yes, I think effectively dealing with emotions, and this is something important we need to teach our kids as well. We won't always know where our reactions stem from or our triggers, but being able to only identify that we have triggers. When someone drinks water from a tap and not from a glass, it bothers me. You don't necessarily have to go through this therapeutic intervention to identify where this challenge or adverse effect which tapping water from a tap has on you came from. No, we need to become more aware of our triggers. And that's a clear indication of where we need to intervene in terms of emotional intelligence. And I think one area in life where the properties of this often gets lost is through values. So many people refrain from teaching their kids values. And this is, you will remember this in your day. It's less significant in my youth. We actually have a 20-year difference, so that's why we can speak in generational gaps. But you will remember in your time, simple things like kids had to speak to adults in a respectful manner. We see a decrease in those properties. But values like that, having interaction values, when you get to people, you will greet them properly. Having all these rules is often a difficult thing to apply to our kids. It's challenging, especially when they are year 5, 6 years old and they know best. But at the end of the day, these emotional teachings in terms of values creates healthy boundaries for our kids. We might think, oh, my child is happy because he gets to play Fortnite the whole day and I get to do some of my work. It's okay. No, we need to instill values in our kids, because values is the most important guide. Because every emotional reaction around them, they have to put through the filter of their value system. Does this align with my values? Is this true? Is this respectful? Then I have the ability to decide if I'm going to do this or not. And then it becomes, in the program, you as parents will see that we discern between the concept of emotions, feelings, and mood. Emotions is actually a chemical reaction of about 6 to 90 seconds. So we actually only have an excuse for 6 to 90 seconds for being mad at someone. But how often do we get that right? You yelled at your kids and they wrote on the wall and you are mad for the rest of the day. After those 90 seconds and that fleeting moment, it becomes a feeling. And what we refrain from realizing, and this is so important, is that a feeling actually needs thoughts to keep it alive. So we tell ourselves these stories, we have this internal narrative, and we keep these feelings alive. And eventually it becomes what we call a mood. And if we are not careful enough with this mood, in a matter of days, it can become a character trait. What is that? That is your passion, what you speak about. It's part of who you are as a person. And I think that's why it's so important to think about what we feel. I mean, that's one of the most prominent slogans in EQ Kids.
Yeah.
Think about what you feel.
Yeah.
Okay, so I see there's a lot of comments coming through. Someone else noted and said emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize, understand, manage, and use your own emotions in positive ways, and also to recognize and respond appropriately to the emotions of others. Yes, that's quite a comprehensive and accurate definition of emotional intelligence. Well done on that. Again, it's easy defining these concepts until we have to live it.
It's true. What about the core? What if you need to deal with the core of the emotion? Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yes, so a lot of feelings, if we look at fear is the most prominent emotion that exists. But if we look at feelings like anger, although we name anger as one of the 5 primary emotions, anger more often than not has a different root emotion every time. So we look at the anger and we deal with the anger, but if we look closely at anger, there's always a sub-emotion like jealousy, frustration. And that's also an important part of parenting, helping your kids to understand, okay, you feel anger now, but let's find this underlying emotion. Perhaps you are a bit frustrated. And it boils down to the concept of self-awareness. Parents, if ever you are in doubt or unsure or think you are doing everything wrong right now, always come back to self-awareness. Am I developing that? And am I instilling values? If you only remember that. And you know what? Societies and us, especially us working with kids and parents, are quite hard on parents. I must say that. But some exciting news for parents, and this is exciting and it's actually concerning as well. The human mind is developed and structured in such a way that parents actually only need to be attuned and get parenting right 30% of the time. Did you know that?
No,
and
I didn't.
Still,
And
we struggle to.
And if they do get it right 30%, will the kids be okay?
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
We'll have
So
a
what?
relatively stable attachment style. It will be relatively positive. So we often stare ourselves blank at perfection, being the perfect parent. But this is a more attainable measure to remember that perfection is not the aim. Helping kids to feel safe, seen, and secure is the aim. And that often requires dedication. It often requires us not to bestow what we feel on our kids, like using statements like, you make me angry, you make me sad. And to wrap up this idea, I quickly just want to share a story. Many years ago, I worked a lot with trauma incidents and kids and parents and adults and everyone who experienced traumatic incidents. And I will never forget this situation in which a freak accident happened in the living room of the family. The father was there. He was standing at the table with his 12-year-old girl. And in this freak accident, the toddler passed away. The girl saw it. The father saw it. So this is trauma. And when we hear the word trauma, we often worry that we can't protect our kids from it. But when it comes to trauma, it comes back to the idea that your reaction has the biggest influence of what your child will make of this. So I sat there with that father and I didn't know what to tell him. What do you tell someone who, in the presence of their 12-year-old, the little brother passed away and the girl saw everything?
Sure.
So I looked at him and I remember telling him, you're going to have two fights. And this is a reality for every parent. The one fight is going to be your grief in his case. But the other fight is not allowing your pain, your challenges, to become the pain of this 12-year-old of yours that is still here. And that is the honorable thing, the honor of being a parent. We get to fight these battles, but we often forget about them. So 6 years later, this guy phones me and he tells me, you will never forget. My girl today, she became one of the head leaders at a school. They asked her to say something. She walked up to the stage, she looked at me and she said, Dad. And she never heard my conversation with him. Today, I want to thank you for never allowing your pain to become my pain. And Lynette, you spoke about your dad earlier on, and I know a lot more about your mom and dad stories. And that is something you can actually give us advice on, because you came from a challenging background. You had difficult situations you had to endure. But despite that, you got this realization that whatever the condition is of the people around me, I am responsible for what I feel, what I think, and what I do.
Yeah, I think one of the most liberating moments in my life was when I realized that I can only, up to the stage, blame my parents.
That's
because
profound.
I think it's only but by the grace of God, I realized that I can now make a decision. I was 18 years old and I can make my own choices. And when I picked up on that, my life changed. I've never up until today, and I'm in my 60s, turning 62. Listen, I've never ever blamed them for anything I didn't have. But I remember that my mom, every single morning when she dressed us, we were still in the primary school, and then she would say the following. She would say, Remember, don't take anything, even though it is as little as a pin. Remember, Jesus sees everything. And then later on, we said it after like a choir. Remember, and then we lived it. Up until today, I cannot take something that is not mine because it is engraved in my subconscious mind. But the story that I want to get to is that my mother had a groovy green temperament. She didn't like conflict. She always tried to protect our kids. She always protect my father from us. Not that he hurt us, but she never allowed us to say something bad about him. But here is the thing. One morning, my dad was very sick. Now, a red person will go to work even though he is sick or she is sick. It's just who they are. It's their temperament. But that day, my dad was really, really sick and he was still in bed. And my mom was in the room next door and she was busy getting us ready for school. So something happened the previous day, and my brother had like a blue mark here under his eye. So she said, and remember, Leslie, the Bible says, now that is her version of that, perception of that verse. Remember, the Bible says if they hit you on the one cheek, you need to turn the other cheek. And out of the room, my dad says, and I cannot say what he said.
Can't repeat the
I
words.
I can't. So, but I will say bleep, bleep, bleep. You will know the word. You can just fill in with that words. So I said, bleep, 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 man. Then you bleep, 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 declaim bleep, bleep, bleep. And then my mom went like this. She said, oh, here, here. How will I be able to raise the kids in a house like this? And Antoinette, if there's one thing that parents need to understand, is that they need to be in one accord when decisions are made. And they cannot differ in front of one another so that the children can see that there's division. Because they will always go to the parent that is the relationship parent, which will be the yellow or the green. And normally they give in. So it's just once again a call on you as a parent to really, before you say something, to think. Stop and think before you say something. Because whatever you say, your subconscious mind takes photos, takes video clips, takes voice messages, and it gets filed here. And then from time to time, it sends messages to the emotional brain, and your emotional brain is 80,000 times faster than your forebrain. And we need to, whatever we do, we need to first send what happened in our emotional brain over to our forebrain, because the forebrain has a lobe, and that lobes allow you to work through the information of the emotional brain. But unfortunately, people do not stop, do not think before they talk. And from this brain to this brain, you need about 5 to 6 seconds. Say something, Antonetta.
Yes, that is very interesting. So, we as parents have a lot of responsibility on us, but it all boils back to the example we set. We cannot replace that. We cannot get past that. And I think Lynette explained it quite well with examples from her life. Those moments that our kids remember. Remember, this becomes the way they see the world. This becomes their perception of the people around them, the way you speak about others, the way you informally speak to your husband or your spouse in a situation. I remember many years ago, I was in the living room with someone I knew, and her husband came home. He fetched all the kids from school, and this youngster came running in there and he said, but you know what, Mom, the kids at school bullied me today, but this one boy particularly slapped me, and I'm so sad. And the mom looked at him and she said, who was that? And he said, I can't remember the child's name. Let's say it was Daniel. And she looked at her boy and he said, why do you worry about Daniel and what he says about you? Those are such stupid, idiotic, tappet people. That is so wrong.
Oh,
That is such And that was such an opportunity for the mom to just look him in the eyes and say, you know what, I'm sorry about what happened to you. You don't have to always provide solutions. We as parents often want to give our kids solutions all the time. No, until your child is 12 years old, in actual fact, your main responsibility is to effectively co-regulate with them. What does that mean? Not giving them ammunition. It means being there so that they feel safe, they feel seen, and they feel secure. And it does not mean, on the opposite side, praising kids for efforts which didn't quite reach the bar. Praising kids for things they didn't really work hard for. You know me, I often fight with parents who has these quite elaborate reward charts. You made up your bed, you brushed your teeth, 4 points, 1 point every week. We need to be careful. Those are things that our kids need in life. It's life skills. They need to do it for themselves.
Don't have to get paid for it,
yes.
Is it? No, I agree.
I always tell my kids, you go to school, you perform academically, not for me, for you. It's not for me. So I always say, parents, if you really want to go the reward chart way, then you have only one thing on there. And that is the ability to develop self-control. In essence, what Lynette said, to stop and to be able to think, take those few seconds. If you can only get yourself to remain quiet for 6 seconds. Those advice our parents gave us, take a few deep breaths. If we can get ourselves to only take those deep breaths for 6 seconds. And this is amazing. We as adults struggle to do it, and yet we have 5-year-olds in the EQ for Kids program who can stand there when something happens, take a few deep breaths, and then react. That gives us time. That gives our frontal lobe, which is actually the control center of our brain, the part that we want to be in charge, time to kick in. Instead of the middle brain, the amygdala that you spoke about earlier, if we react in those first few seconds. And what is amazing about the EQ for Kids program for me is this is actually technically an ability that we only want to see fully developed by the age of 25 in kids. But yet, through this program and focusing on developing the self-awareness in kids enables them to, at the age of 5-year-old, already do that, which is quite remarkable. I saw Chris Marie send through a few statistics from EQ for Kids and the success factors, and it's quite nice, the research properties that we are getting out of it and the fact that it works.
And the one thing that I really appreciate, if you're an EQ parent, on behalf of Chris Marie, who is now running EQ for Kids, Chris Marie Holzkamp, sorry, Chris Marie.
Very difficult surname.
Yeah, moeilijk. And she's pregnant now. We wish you a wonderful pregnancy. But one thing that I want to thank you for, parents, is the feedback that you are giving us. Because as long as we get feedback, we know that what we are doing is in line, and you may also give us feedback if there's something that does bother you. But thank you so much for the great comments that you are sending us, letters, WhatsApps. Thank you so much for that.
Yes, and Neo, I'm not sure if I'm saying it appropriately. You commented and said it in essence means it's okay to reward a child, but yet it's important to teach them responsibility. Yes, there's actually quite a bit of comprehensive research done on that, which shows that kids who are rewarded for simple things like making their bed, brushing their teeth, and having these elaborate reward charts actually are prone to be less successful than kids who were not rewarded, who were taught, listen, this is part of your responsibilities. And remember, responsibilities is the forefront of teaching our kids values and sustainable values, which brings me back to my definition of EQ for Kids, which in essence is teach your kids to have values that'll always be stronger than their feelings. It is amazing to have a child come home and tell you, Mom, I'm angry, I'm frustrated, This is the way I feel. As soon as you get kids to develop this ability, you as a parent start relaxing, because suddenly you realize that your job as a parent is not to be the rescue ranger and provide solutions. No, like I said, 0 to 12 is your co-regulation phase. From the age of 12 until kids are finished with school, about 18 years old, that is the phase which I refer to as the co-positioning phase. What does that mean? It means during that phase, you start stepping back a bit. You position your child to be able to try different things, different sports, different activities, and in the process, develop a healthy identity separate from you. There is quite a few analogies which refer to parenting as building a ship. The first year, 0 to 12, you have the ship in the harbor, you're building it. And from the age of 12 onwards, you are sending that ship out into the world. In the first years, you were responsible for making sure that that ship can withstand storms and severe weather conditions. But after that, you as a parent need to start stepping back so that kids start to self-regulate, although you are still involved in positioning them in life. Positioning means helping them discover their talents. This is where Lynette's study programs method also comes in, where there's a initial phase of identity development where kids actually start learning more about their temperaments, their natural abilities, their strengths, their weaknesses. This is important in identity development, especially in this co-positioning phase. And then later on, when our kids, and this is also important because we often forget about the older parents in webinars like this. I know here at Lynette's place where we are currently having this webinar, she has a friend here who's got elder kids. Kids are out of the home, and she's such a wonderful example of this. But when our kids are young adults, we also have a responsibility, but that responsibility becomes helping them be self-preserving. What does that mean? Let me define it in simple terms. It means that our kids need to be able, even as teenagers and a young age, but especially when they are young adults crafting and developing their own lives, they need to be able to look at us and see, wow, my mom is happy. My mom is fighting for her dreams. My mom is regulating emotions effectively. Because in that phase, as young adults, that is actually what motivates them to provide information on the contradicting side of this. Imagine having a parent who's always complaining. There's always something wrong. The burden it places on kids, if we go and look at more clinical concepts like attachment theory, having a parent who's continuously feeling depressed or emotionally unpredictable has an influence on kids. So parents, comes back to what we said at the beginning. Who you are as a person, fight for that. Show that example for your kids. And sometimes it means reflecting on your own life, dusting off those old dreams that you had and pulling them back in and saying, but parenting doesn't mean being available 24/7 for my kids and giving up my life. No, it means loving your life, setting the example, making sure the time you spend is not just time, but quality time. So Lynette, you are better with this webinar and technology thing compared to me. I see there's a few comments or questions coming through. Is there anything that we...
Can I tell you what trigger my eye? Can we please start an EQ Kids in Swellendam? Yes, for sure we can.
Swellendam.
Listen, I just want to tell you that we already have 23 branches, EQ for Kids branches, well-equipped, trained franchisees. So if you want to start a business, you can really contact us. But if you really want to teach your child emotional intelligence, how to regulate the emotions, please contact us. We really want to help. I want to ask you, Antonetta, because I can see the time is ticking. What are the key outcomes of the EQ for Kids curriculum?
Yes, so the outcomes, to summarize them, at the age of 2 to 3 year olds, it's obviously self-regulation. That's the focus. If we look at the 2 to 3 year olds, we incorporate self-awareness and a little bit of self-regulation. So the basis is self-awareness. From 3 years old, we start incorporating elements
Just stop there. I just want to say this. You cannot have a good self-esteem if you do not have self-awareness. It starts with self-awareness, good self-esteem, self-confidence, self-love, and then only you can love other people. Please continue. I just want to add that one.
Yes, so the basis, self-awareness, self-regulation. And then what's interesting about the EQ for Kids program is we, especially at all the age groups, but especially from the age of 5, we start implementing a very strong element of resilience, being able to deal with adversity, not just being able to bounce back, but to bounce forward, to learn from challenges, to learn from adversity. We teach kids actually to start developing different perspectives. Just because this situation might look gleamy and doomed from the start, there's a different way to look at it. So that's what we do with the 5 and 6 year olds. And the undertone, and you mentioned it, self-confidence development is a strong element of the EQ for Kids program. And no, self-confidence is not developed by telling your kids you sing the most beautiful in the world, you are the most prettiest thing under the sun, you draw the most beautiful pictures. Self-confidence is developed through specificity. That's quite a big word, specificity. What does that mean? It means we have to look at the details, the deeper elements of the human being and the human psyche. So an effective definition, if we look at the definition of a good self-esteem, it in essence means that you develop the ability to keep the promises you make to yourself. What does that mean? Having a good track record with yourself. So a big part of the EQ for Kids program is to teach kids to set a goal, to follow the steps and develop the patience to achieve this goal, and to have the opportunity to reflect back on these moments of achievement, because that in essence is what develops healthy self-esteem. So we teach kids basically to help keep the promises they make to themselves, because your brain and the brain of a child throughout life needs a healthy track record with themselves. We forget how important it is for kids to be in control of themselves, to be able to know I can trust myself. When there's challenging situations, I know that I will not crumble and fall because I have skills available to me that I can utilize. So that's how we develop self-confidence in kids.
Thank you, Antonetta. Just there's a question. The EQ program for my 6 and 8 years old is great. Thank you so much, Desiree. And helping them so much after their dad died. So to deal with all the different emotions they feel. But somebody asked, thank you for that. Somebody asked, there's something for the 6 and 8 year old that is attending the EQ program school, but there isn't anything for 10-year-olds. There's definitely. You can talk on that?
Yes, so we have a bit of a more advanced program which consists of workshops for primary school and high school kids. Not all of the franchisees are necessarily trained at the high level where they present preschool and high school classes, but then if you don't have an area representative, remember to contact head office, because there's individuals from head office's side who presents these workshops across the country along with the parenting workshops.
Listen to Mariselle Miller says, EQ kids for teenagers. Listen, thank you for that, Mariselle. But we do have, like Antoinette just said, we have workshops for them. But we after tonight, we will thoroughly go through everything that you've written. And we are constantly developing. I can tell you that we have just trained all our people for the Learn in Color program, study methods with a temperament. You can contact us in this regard. If you want to enroll your child with an EQ branch, you are so welcome to contact us. Uh, those of you that have looked at your emails would see that there's a exclusive parent resources document that will, whereby you will be able to benefit. I want you to just go back to your email, see whether you find this. It is extra courses that we offer you, which you can take advantage of. There are also these 3 books. This book, I will never forget this, Antonetta. She phoned me the one day. I said to her, we need to do a book for the parents and the kids. So Antonetta started writing the stories, but you wrote them all 4 in one day. Crazy. She's very intellectual, as you could hear, and her English is perfect.
No, struggle
Good
with
for
the
you,
English.
Antonetta. So she wrote the stories in this book. So if you read these stories, it is about Dr. Yellow, Red Roof, uh, Blue Sheep, and Green Bug. Then, as you read it to them, they will be able to tell you who they are. But you can also do the test on the website. And then at the back, I've given you the profile of the different temperament kids, because you need to know the temperament of your kid to be able to help them to grow emotional intelligence. So, and at the very back of the book, I'm showing you, if you're a yellow parent with a red child, what are those things that you have in common, but what are the things that you do not have in common? So this will definitely help you. And then last year, was it last year, Antoinette? We wrote this book, Parenting the 4 Temperaments with Emotional Intelligence. Now, the reason why I am on the cover is because she did not want to be on the cover. I just want to mention that, Antonetta. But we wrote this, we co-wrote this book.
Yes, I think something that's important to highlight from that book is it's got separate summaries of how do you actually develop emotional intelligence in different kids.
Yeah.
How do you actually maintain a connection with kids? And these are all solutions that are not solutions that you have to utilize by sitting hours after school with your child every day. No, it's part of the things you can interweave with your daily program, the way you just operate in life, in your general habits and ways of being.
Yeah. And then definitely, if you do not know your temperament, you do not know your strengths, and you do not know your weaknesses, then you need to get this book, Lewe in Volkleur in Afrikaans. And in English, we call it The Window to Your Personality. And you are welcome to order that from the website, www.lynettebeer.co.za, and there you will be able to find the books. So let me just see, you can copy this link into your browser to order the books. Okay. Chris Marie just wrote us this message. You can copy this link into your browser to order the books. Good. EQ is a wonderful initiative. Do you have courses for teachers? We definitely have courses for teachers.
And the book.
Say again. And the book. And the book, we call it Teach to Reach.
Yeah.
Teach to Reach. Yeah, whatever. We have that book on the website. You can.
The reason we sound confusing is because it was a big project done by Professor Carolina from Northwest University. So that's mainly her baby.
Teach to Reach.
Yes.
In Afrikaans, we call it Ritme van jou roeping. In Engels, it's Teach to Reach. So Dr. Carolina Botha, no, it's Professor now, Carolina Botha. Yes. From the Northwest University, as Antoinette said, and we wrote that book together. It's a brilliant book. It's a brilliant course. We are busy with putting that into a course. On the 2nd of November, I've launched a online platform where you can become a member, and you will have access to everything I do, whether it is temperaments, whether it is emotions, whether it is faith or relationships.
On that note, Lynette, can you share a bit more with us on the main Lynette Beer Media Company and everything that's underneath it? How does it all flow out into each other?
Yeah, thank you, Antoinette, for asking that. So originally I started with the company Seeds of Inspiration. And the second company was EQ for Kids when Antoinette came on board. And then we started with Teach to Reach. But in November, we launched a brand new company. We call it Lynette Beer Media. And everything is now Lynette Beer Media. And under the Lynette Beer Media, you'll get Seeds, and you'll get EQ, and you'll get Learning Color, Teach to Reach, and then Seedlings, which is an NPO. So please, people, if you can become, if you want to, you can become a member. It will add a lot of value to your life. My aim, my dream is eventually to make that a one-stop shop. So whatever your needs are, you can go to that platform and find it there. But it is still a long time to get everything that we want to be on there. So I want to, let me see, is there one question we can maybe answer?
Well, I see there's one that asks, can EQ for Kids help with kids on the spectrum? We get this question a lot. This is a difficult question to answer. It depends on the level of autism, the level of being on the spectrum, where exactly on the spectrum they are, whether it's leaning more towards the autistic side, just your ADHD elements. And on the high functioning side, ADHD side, EQ for Kids has a lot of kids enrolled in the program. We have a lot of franchisees who are actually trained and informed on this topic, who has great success. But on the lower side of functioning, we are busy with a lot of interventions and research in this field. So as you as parents of kids who are on the spectrum know, this is not a question that you can just answer in a single session. It's a unique ability for kids and parents, a unique assessment, and contact your franchisee to do an evaluation and to give you proper advice onto whether incorporating them into EQ for Kids classes will be the right thing to do.
I just want to read what Shanae van Sale wrote. She said, EQ has helped my oversensitive 8-year-old to control his emotions and communicate what he feels, as well as how to work through those feelings. I would love to have my teenager participate in EQ too. So, Shanae, we will look into that. Antonetta, we will look into that. We will go through these questions, which we did not answer, and then Chris Marie will make sure that the answer will get to you. Unfortunately, an hour is only that long, and therefore we will not be able to answer all the questions, but we will answer you. So thank you so much for registering. Thank you so much for listening. Please be welcome to contact us if you need us. We want to be there. We really want to help parents. We really want to help children. We love families. And we want to bring healing where there's no healing. And we want to bring joy where there is no joy. So thank you so much for listening. Be blessed and go well.
Good evening, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Hopefully there's still time to give those kids a kiss goodnight.
Bye-bye.